started by looking at the necessity to prepare ourselves. We also discussed about the necessity through which we can also pre-sell the concept. And sometimes people may also outsmart us by showing different kinds of body language. We discussed about them. Now, from an academic perspective, I would prefer to just bring in a concept by name, social astuteness. It refers to the ability to read a context correctly. Now, while I'm talking about reading a context, it's just like a batsman who is coming in and trying to decide whether I need to hit a ball for a 6, or do I need to go for a quick single, or do I need to respect that particular ball and defend it. It also talks about my ability to understand the situation, the context I am in. What is my required run rate? How many wickets are already lost? So that my ability to make the correct decision is increasing. I would prefer to rely on some more of your experience, especially focusing on pre-selling the concept, and through which how do you try to understand and gauge the mood or even the power dynamics which are behind the decision making. Can you, if it's possible for you to share some of your personal experiences and the insights you were able to develop, through which others can also manage the situations better. So our ability to read those power dynamics better, the reason for somebody to switch from one position to another position, has it, especially pre-selling, pre-sell the concept as a technique, even before we go to the boardroom, wherein, okay, there it may become a surprise for us, but sometimes we identified some of the people who are central to the network, and if I can pre-sell it, the probability for me to get a favorable answer is increasing. So can you just reflect about such experiences of pre-selling to understand the power dynamics, and also what may be the consequences, how do they may react?
I think for the board part, and I think this is what happens with me, what we're doing. So like any other organization, every quarter there is an NRC, there is an NRC chair, which I'm going to work with. So two things actually. So one, of course, there is an agenda item that goes in every board meeting as a quarterly plan, and there would be something which would be happening there. One is the pre-read that you send out, right? Typically, you send it out 7 to 10 days in advance, depending on that. That actually sets the context of the conversation, especially when you're talking about boardroom conversations. The agenda sets out where you are giving whatever details, because the board members are expected to come prepared, read through it. The second thing that actually works for me, which I realized over a period of time, is between this period, I have an offline conversation with the NRC chair. And I get a sense of what he's looking for and what is his idea, because board members come with their own wisdom. The point is, they're not running your org every day. We know it better, but they come with their wisdom where they think how the organization is shaping in terms. Now, there are these tricky points, and people topics always are very passionate. People become very passionate. Everybody comes with their own background and they have an experience. So I think that pre-board conversation that I have every quarter and every once in a few months, that gives me a lot of scope to set that context. To your point, have you kind of pre-sold the idea? Okay, this is what I am going to propose, this is where it is coming. Of course, there are other members that have to vouch, and finally the board has to sign off. But I need that consent much beforehand, because and as much as possible I try to, he becomes a partner in the process, because finally after NRC goes to the main board for all approvals, some of those tricky things. So I think that helps a lot, and that also takes care of the power dynamics, because a chair definitely holds the final veto on a lot of things, right? It's not the founder, it's not the CEO, because he's not the chair, it's not the other board members, it's that NRC chair. So that's where the power dynamics also gets taken care of very well. So I think that is what has worked for me in the last few years, as I've realized how to maneuver through these things.
I'll give an example. It's, this happens and more closer to HR. Being in chief of staff role in many organizations, it's my responsibility to hold that kind of meetings where the employee of the year is chosen, right? It's a year-long effort done by the employees, and it is chosen. Because it's at a higher level, even HR is okay to vote in that. So that kind of situation I had in all the 3 or 4 organizations. I'm a neutral person always. I always hold that kind of positions in most of the organizations. So in the first one, I used to just go blind and okay, please vote karo, and we used to vote it and do it. I kept on seeing a pattern of the business leaders are doing one after the other. Okay, this is my year and this is next year and this new year. So they have all shared, their okay, this is my year and next year you will get it. And I said, that's not the thing, right? Why you have made me as a neutral person to do it, so that it's done fairly. So what I used to do is just 1 month before, go and understand who are them they are nominating. First you need to know that who are nominating, and then also understand why. And again, the party to and the dynamics to power, I used to understand, and then also understand who is not present or present on that day, because that also makes a difference when it comes to power and voting and all. So those things I started doing, and in the final one, the organization, I could at least ensure that it is fairly done, because it's again everybody has a fair chance to get that, be recognized, right, in that way. So that I learned. Again, it's true, a lot of being at that position, I could learn that. And even whether a particular business unit or an organization has more than one votes, also it happened in one of the year. It happened that all of a sudden before this decision the promotions happened. So but one business unit got 3 votes, then the remaining one which had single votes. So these simple ones, but again it's being present and understanding, right, where it comes from, who is chosen, just to be fair. I think that what made me.
So what I was saying was that I'll put it maybe differently, because I don't agree with the context. Let's divide whether you're taking a decision or whether the decision is made and you're trying to socialize it. When you're taking a decision, putting context is putting constraints. You're actually constraining, saying this is what it is. And in a typical engineering environment, a context setting is bad. When we are constraining, I won't do that. I would let the ideas fly and discussion happen, and probably we'll find out something more than what we can do, what was originally context. But if it's a decision that's taken, and then you're probably taking to then your social conscious or quotient along with a context setting, how do we do that? We all have to return to work 5 days after the COVID, right? You need to have a social awareness from a cultural, regional, and another places to drive that decision. So it's because decision or not decision, otherwise context, I would say, is a bad word from a so-called as ideas building and.
No, but why would, see, in both the situations, I agree to your point, are you in that room for getting a decision done, or you are in that room to convey a decision done? Both the cases require context. Because not everybody in the room would understand where is this coming from. And sometimes as part of the conversation, while you know that you want, there is nothing known as consensus in today's world. It's not the right way also to look at it. You can't have 100% consensus. You will have people who will have disagreements, but you'll still need to set some context. Context setting is still going to be required in both the cases. Of course, in one place you are in the driver's seat, you'll probably maneuver the group to come to that decision. In certain cases, it is already done and you are just kind of conveying the nuances of it. But context, I guess, would require both, right?
Could be. You decide whether you want to put it on the first moment and then limit the discussion versus keep it and build the guardrails later, so that at least you have what kind of ideas or solutions that are coming in.
I'll give you an example which is totally very, very different, right? Something, because Professor asked about an example and something which been moving around my head. So it's a fairly large company. We were hiring a CEO for that company. He had some brilliant round of meetings and interviews with everybody. He was a top candidate. There was no way that he could be stopped. And it was a final round where he was supposed to come and present himself to the board. And I happened to be sitting in that meeting. He was my candidate. I kind of prepared him. A lot of prep was gone into it. What's going to happen? I told him about the different personalities of these board members, who they are and how they react, what happens, and so on, kind of a thing. But he was given about an hour to come and be a part of it. It's a great learning. Now, he comes into the meeting and he just wants to sell himself. He didn't realize that he's already been sold. The company is already ready to buy him. But the point is that he was so in his eagerness, in his enthusiasm, the mistake that he did, that he came without reading the room, without reading how the people behaving and reacting. Board of directors are easiest the people to handle, because everybody has a different point of view in a board. And I'm sitting there and making the dynamics easier. Now, him, rather than reading between the lines, he, rather than, reading the room, he's too eager to sell and project himself, and he lost the opportunity. So kind of a learning from an example, that even before you start acting, start speaking, at least start reading the room, start reading between the lines, start reading what is happening around. So I think that is just a small example and a point of view of a learning which came in across.
So we used to have, going back to the point, right? The question was that, like, of course, this is the example more of someone trying to sell themselves, overselling, right? But if I look at the question of how do you pre-sell better, in a way, I think simple things, right? Figure out who your target segment is. First of all, figure out the roles, right? Who is the decision maker? Who is the influencer? Who is the check writer? Who is the problem creator, etc., etc. I think one thing which we need to figure out is what's in it for each one of them, right? What is, pardon my language, what is the itch you have to scratch for each one of them, right? And I believe you have to hit those points in the first 5-7 minutes, right? Then you have the room. So, otherwise you'll keep bouncing around. And
so going back to my example, so what I told earlier, the pre-work that I did was to kind of meet a couple of people who were the major decision makers, and one of them actually gave me an idea of how to actually craft the presentation also, because the presentation that I was going to make was a little more technical, because I came from a technical background, so they had a lot of technical slides and things like that. He said, the management committee doesn't need to see that kind of technical detailing. You could probably keep it as an appendix. Just stick to 2-3 slides, and especially talk about the cost benefit analysis, because that's probably going to be more interesting to them, right? So, and which is what we did. So the meeting probably just lasted only 10 minutes and the approval was given. So that is how it was actually done. So sometimes that also, that those insights also come from those kind of decision makers.
I'll give you a different example of going into a meeting where you have to plan for the next year annual business plan, and you will have your share of budget, and obviously everybody goes there to get a lion's share of budget, and then how do you get into it? So to add to what he said is, then you collaborate with different stakeholders who will go and influence there, and also I agree with him then that you go and talk to them in advance. This is the thing which I want to present. What is your feel over it? Then you get the feeling of each of the major stakeholders, and then you go inside the room and present your budget for the year.